Freemasonry, Sabbateanism, Frankism, 𝗏𝗁𝗱𝗏, and Freemasonic Sabbatean Frankist 𝗏𝗁𝗱𝗏 secret Messianism, Kabbalistic roots, and religious disguise. Executive summary. This report investigates the religious and socio-political phenomena known as Sabbateanism, Frankism, 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, and the fusion term Sabbatean Frankist 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. These movements emerged from Jewish messianic mysticism and took radical turns, often involving secret religious practices, public conversions, and antinomian beliefs. Their esoteric ideologies drew deeply from Kabbalah, particularly the Lurianic tradition, and reshaped Jewish mysticism in subversive ways. Some scholars and theorists suggest these movements infiltrated major religious and political spheres, sometimes operating in secret under other religious identities. Introduction. This report explores a series of interrelated religious and esoteric movements that have spanned centuries and continents: Sabbateanism, Frankism, 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, and their intersections with Freemasonry and secret messianic doctrines. Emerging from the mystical traditions of Jewish Kabbalah, particularly the Lurianic school, Sabbateanism and Frankism developed into radical reinterpretations of Messianism, often promoting antinomian practices, dual identities, and concealed religious objectives. These movements challenged normative Jewish theology and later intersected with other currents such as crypto-religion, political assimilation, and clandestine influence on European aristocracy and secret societies. Meanwhile, the symbolic legacy of Baal worship, once central to ancient Canaanite and Carthaginian religion, has been interpreted by some researchers as a mythological or archetypal framework adopted, symbolically or philosophically, by certain esoteric groups. This report aims to neutrally examine the historical origins, mystical foundations, public conversions, secret doctrines, and speculative allegations regarding the persistence and influence of these currents into the modern era, particularly through lenses such as Freemasonry and elite political networks, origins and development. Sabbateanism, 𝗧𝗿𝗶𝗁𝗱𝗏𝗏, born 1626, died 1676, was a Sephardic rabbi and mystic from Smyrna, modern-day Izmir, Turkey. In 1648, he declared himself the Jewish Messiah. Followers believe Zeus's apostasy was part of a mystical plan to redeem the world by descending into sin and darkness, redemption through sin, a concept derived from Lurianic Kabbalah, and later known as antinomianism. In 1666, under threat of execution by the Ottoman Sultan, Zeus converted to Islam, a move that disillusioned many, but strengthened his messianic myth for a core group of followers. Many converted to Sunni Islam, for example, the dona, or Christianity, to emulate him, while secretly practicing Sabbateanism, Frankism. Jacob Frank, born 1726, died 1791, was a Polish Jew who claimed to be the reincarnation of 𝗧𝗿𝗱𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 and King David. Radically antinomian and anti-rabbinic, Frank preached the transgression of Jewish law as a path to liberation, including sexual promiscuity and inversion of traditional religious values. Advocated radical antinomian doctrines, including the abolition of traditional religious law, and encouraged false conversions to Christianity as a form of esoteric subversion. After clashes with rabbinical authorities, Frank and his followers converted to Christianity in 1759 in Poland, becoming outwardly Catholic, while retaining secretive doctrines. Frank gained political asylum in Habsburg lands, and engaged with nobility and Catholic clergy. Frankism is widely regarded as a continuation and evolution of Sabbateanism, incorporating even more extreme mystical interpretations. Beliefs and practices, core tenets. Sabbateans and Frankists believed in antinomianism, the idea that religious laws must be broken to achieve spiritual enlightenment. This was tied to a belief in a messianic era, where the old laws would be obsolete. In Messianism, Both movements centered around a belief in a divine mission. 𝗧𝗏 and Frank as messianic figures who descended into sin to redeem the world from within. Disguise and secrecy. Followers often converted to other religions outwardly, Sunni Islam or Christianity, while practicing their form of mystical Judaism secretly. Secret practices. Many Sabbateans and Frankists practiced a dual identity doctrine. They led double lives, outwardly loyal Muslims, Christians, or Enlightenment-era secularists, while inwardly maintaining esoteric rituals. Practices include reinterpretations and inversion of Jewish holidays, inverted fasts, and even sacred orgies in some Frankist sects, Lurianic Kabbalah as a framework. Both Sabbateanism and Frankism heavily rooted in the mystical system of Rabbi Isaac Luria, born 1534, died 1572, which introduced tzimtzum, divine contraction, 𝗍𝗿𝗱𝗶𝗁𝗆, breaking of the vessels and tikkun, restoration. These concepts suggested that divine sparks are trapped in the profane world and must be redeemed, often providing justification for engaging with sin or impurity to liberate holiness. Radical Kabbalah. Sabbateans and Frankists took Luria's framework into a heretical direction. Reverse tikkun, redemption through engaging with evil. Mystical nihilism, breakdown of all structures, including morality, as necessary to reach a divine unity beyond good and evil, emanation of evil. Some teachings suggest that evil too comes from God, and thus must be embraced and reconciled within the divine totality. This aligns them, in the eyes of some, with Gnostic dualism and ancient Near Eastern religious inversion. The Sabbatean and Frankist movements took esoteric Kabbalistic concepts, such as Adam Kadmon, and radically reinterpreted them, often in ways considered heretical or inverted by mainstream Judaism. Adam Kadmon, primordial man, is the first emanation in Lurianic Kabbalah after the tzimtzum, divine contraction. It is not the biblical Adam, but a cosmic archetype representing the divine image and the template for creation. Adam Kadmon channels divine light into the world via the Sephirot, and is associated with unity, wholeness, and the ideal spiritual form of humanity. Sabbatai 𝗧𝗏's followers reinterpreted Adam Kadmon through a messianic, transgressive lens. 𝗧𝗏 was sometimes seen by followers as a manifestation or embodiment of Adam Kadmon, bearing the divine spark necessary for cosmic restoration, tikkun. Just as Adam Kadmon existed before sin, 𝗧𝗏 was seen as beyond good and evil. In Lurianic Kabbalah, the divine light shattered vessels, creating sparks trapped in evil. Sabbateans believed only radical, paradoxical acts, including sinful ones, could liberate the sparks, and 𝗧𝗏's descent, including his apostasy, was framed as a Kabbalistic descent into the 𝗍𝗿𝗆𝗃, husks of impurity. The traditional Adam Kadmon reflects order and unity. The Sabbatean view is that restoration, tikkun, requires entering chaos and violating religious norms to reach a higher unity. This was a mystical inversion, sin as a divine act if done by the Messiah. Jacob Frank, developing 𝗧𝗏's legacy, amplified the radical reinterpretations. Frank presented himself not just as a Messiah, but as a new Adam, sometimes implying he was Adam Kadmon reincarnated, tasked with fulfilling what 𝗧𝗏 began. Frank taught that the divine is most deeply hidden within evil and impurity, and thus only by descending into evil, symbolically or literally, could one access the divine core. Whereas Adam Kadmon in Kabbalah is the blueprint of order, Frankists saw this as incomplete or even broken. Their task was to create a new spiritual structure through destruction and inversion. Frank's teachings openly embraced apostasy, incestuous symbolism, sexual ritual, and sacred sin, framed as necessary to return the divine to unity. Crypto-Judaism, Islamic conversion, dona. Sabbateans in the Ottoman Empire who converted to Sunni Islam, but maintained secret rituals and allegiance to 𝗧𝗏. Some dona sects existed well into the 20th century, especially in Salonika, and later in Istanbul. Christian conversion, Frankists. Jacob Frank and his followers converted en masse to Roman Catholicism, yet were suspected by both the Church and Jewish authorities of maintaining clandestine practices, political and economic infiltration. Scholarly allegations claim Sabbatean Frankists influenced European Enlightenment thinkers, Masonic lodges and banking and political elites, particularly in Central and Eastern Europe. Survivals and influence. It is claimed by several historians, scholars, and political commentators, both Turkish and international, that the Dona community in Turkey quietly dissolved or assimilated into secular Turkish society, abandoning their secret religion after the fall of the Ottoman Empire. However, this is a contested subject, with no full scholarly consensus. A few notable historians and researchers, some academic, others more speculative or controversial, claim that Frankists intermarried with European aristocracy and became secularized. But theories persist about their influence on Enlightenment rationalism, revolutionary movements, and even Zionism. Some link Sabbatean Frankism to the Bavarian Illuminati, Freemasonry, and global elites. 𝗬𝗏𝗱𝗶𝗁𝗍𝗶, the founder of the Bavarian Illuminati, allegedly had links to Frankist networks according to some researchers, though unconfirmed. 𝗖𝘆𝗰𝗶𝗶𝗁𝗍𝗶, Freemason mythology. Some researchers claim Freemasonry was influenced by Sabbatean Frankist ideology, especially via Jewish lodges in Central Europe. Some authors suggest that Sabbatean Frankism continues to survive within elite intelligence circles, particularly those linked to Israel and Freemasonry. Others claim covert Sabbatean Frankist groups still exist and influence religious or political institutions under other guises. Allegations that the British royal family descends from Sabbatean Frankists through the 𝗧𝗿𝗍𝗶𝗁𝗍𝗏 and 𝗤𝗍𝗱 bloodline are part of a broader set of speculative theories linking European aristocracy to secret religious sects. These claims often focus on the House of 𝗧𝗿𝗍𝗶𝗁 and 𝗤𝗍𝗱, renamed Windsor in 1917, which had intermarried extensively with other European royal families, some of which were alleged to have had hidden ties to Sabbatean Frankist ideology. Proponents of this theory argue that such esoteric beliefs, which embraced outward assimilation while secretly maintaining antinomian or messianic doctrines, were transmitted through elite bloodlines into European power structures. Historical Sabbatean Frankist movements undeniably promoted secrecy, identity fluidity, and mysticism. Some narratives associate the ideology with Baal worship and Luciferian witchcraft, suggesting that a hidden elite preserves doctrines involving ritual inversion, power through transgression, and spiritual deception. Baalism. Ancient Canaanite symbolism. Baal-Hamon was a chief deity in the Carthaginian and broader Phoenician pantheon, often associated with fertility, weather, and the sun, regarded as a form of Baal. His worship was prominent in North Africa, particularly Carthage, where he was seen as a supreme god. Baal-Hamon was frequently linked with Astarte, or Tanit in the Carthaginian context, a goddess of love, war, and fertility, who served as his consort. Together, they symbolize the male and female principles of creation and power. Astarte, whose worship traces back to earlier Canaanite and Mesopotamian traditions, where she parallels Ishtar and Inanna, was often represented with symbols of sexuality, the moon, and sacred child prostitution. Rituals to Baal-Hamon and Astarte were deeply rooted in agricultural cycles and included offerings intended to secure divine favor for fertility and prosperity. Ancient sources proclaim some rites included infant sacrifice. Their cults were widespread across the Mediterranean and often syncretized with local deities, influencing later Greco-Roman and even early Gnostic religious thought. In the Hebrew Bible, Baal worship is condemned repeatedly, especially for its association with idolatry, sexual rites, and fertility cults. Baal became a symbol of spiritual corruption or inversion in later Abrahamic theology. Conclusion: Sabbateanism and Frankism were radical offshoots of Jewish mysticism that turned core religious values inside out, emphasized secret identity, and promoted antinomianism under the guise of messianic redemption. They weaponized Kabbalistic ideas to justify paradoxical behaviors, including apostasy and sin, as acts of spiritual elevation. The complex intersection of Sabbateanism, Frankism, Freemasonry, and ancient religious archetypes like Baalism reflects a multi-layered history of religious radicalism, mystical reinterpretation, and identity fluidity. While many of the original sects have allegedly either dissolved, assimilated, or left behind fragmented historical records, their theological innovations, particularly the use of transgression as a form of redemption and the notion of spiritual concealment, have sparked ongoing scholarly interest. Some researchers contend that these movements left a lasting imprint on Enlightenment thought, secret societies, and elite power structures, while others believe these movements still exist. The legacy of these traditions continues to provoke debate, particularly in discussions of hidden history, occult philosophy, and the use of religious disguise as a strategy of survival, subversion, or transformation. Whether viewed as fringe mysticism, heretical offshoots, or misunderstood historical phenomena, Freemasonic Sabbatean Frankist Baалite movements and their links to broader esoteric currents remain a subject of enduring inquiry and controversy.